It's funny, with my ring light, when I close my eyes, I can see the ring.
Spooky. Ah! How you feeling? You feel good?
I feel
You
good.
feel
I'm gonna do
loose?
I feel kinda loosey goosey. I kind of feel like a bit of a space woman right now. I kind of feel like I should be in like
You
an
d
like an enterprise. Like I feel like I should have a spaceship and I'm like the
Yeah.
commander or something
I
like
feel like
that.
you're about to scan me with something like, "Put your hand here, place it here." Psh.
From movies to video games, welcome to Replays It All. Today's episode is something different that Kevin and I are trying called the deep dive. And he just said, what? What did you say?
It's a deep dive in a deep dish. I don't know, I just thought of pizza whenever you said, "Let's do, like, an episode, like, where we talk about something where we really love," which we kind of already have, but let's title it deep dive, and so, I don't know, I just love pizza too much, I guess. I just thought about deep dive in a deep dish, so maybe next time I'll have, a big box of pizza sitting here with me.
Yeah. We're gonna somehow incorporate pizza into this at some point. At some point, we're gonna
Mhm.
have pizza. And be like, and this is our pizza that we have today, the day's sponsor. Okay, so we were talking about a movie that we both are passionate about. Evan was telling me, "Oh, you know what I watched last night?"
I said, "Marie, you know what movie is really, really good and still holds up, like, immensely, is 2002's The Ring." And
Mhm.
man, this movie has aged like a fine wine. I watched it really for the first time and probably like it's been a long time, probably like 10 years. I think it was its 21st anniversary this past Wednesday. So on the 18th. And so I cut it on and was just like so immersed into that movie. And I can't wait to talk about it. It's really well done.
When Kevin messaged me that, I said, "You know what? I also very much love The Ring. I love it
Yeah.
so much, and I have for years." And we're like, "Let's just talk about it. Why not?" And so we decided, let's do some deep dives in movies, which we have with Halloween H2O, which we basically did with The Exorcist. Uh, Believer, I was gonna say beginning. No, Exorcist Believer.
Yeah.
And so why not review movies even if they're old? Like, why not talk about them even if they're older? Like, they deserve some love
Hmm.
or hate. We'll see if we do some hateful ones, but so
Hmm.
let's deep dive into The Ring. Okay, I want to know what your first interaction with the Ring movie, your first experience with it. Do you remember it? And
I
when was
do.
it, if you can remember, and what happened? Tell me about it.
I do. I think I was either in 8th grade or ninth grade. I was 13,
Mm,
and this is the best theater experience I have ever had and probably will ever have. It just
nice.
seared such an imprint in me and in my memories, and I remember going to see it opening night with a group of friends, and that was back in a time, in an era where when you went to the movies, like, you didn't know what to expect. Like, there wasn't all the spoilers you get now, all like the leaked reports, none of that. So you just got the trailer, you got excited, and you just went to the movies all the time. That was just like the
Mm-hmm.
fun thing to do on a Friday night. You go to the movies with friends. And so went there and just became fully immersed in that movie. And there is a scene in that movie that still haunts me to this day. It's a scene that scarred me so bad, that scared the pants off of me so bad in the theater. The only time this has ever happened to me, ever, with any movie, where my brain, like, instinctually threw my hands over my face to cover my eyes because it shocked me that bad. And people that have seen The Ring probably know what scene I'm talking about, but I just remember, and that scene is so horrific for a lot of ways. It comes out of nowhere, and so when that happens, it shocks you, and you are on edge the rest of the movie. And it's just a movie that is so mechanically well engineered. And yeah, so I saw it when I was 13, and I remember being so scared to go home after seeing it. And then once it came back out, a few months later, I remember just kind of camping out in my friend's living room and watching it again. But that scene, I couldn't watch it. And I haven't watched it until 2 days ago. And I finally faced it. So this will be a fun one to take a deep dive on for sure.
So you watched it when you were like 13-ish, and then
Yep.
you haven't watched it since at all until a couple
I
days
don't
ago.
know. I don't know. I watched it a few times when it first came out back in 2002, but then I may have caught it on TV, I may have watched it here and there growing up, but I really
Yeah.
don't have any recollection of it. So I might have only seen it a handful of times, which kind of made me maybe more respected of it in a sense, more immersed into it,
Okay.
you know?
I love that you waited so long and this was your first time being like, okay, I'm gonna watch The Ring. I'm gonna like put it on, I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
do
watch
it.
it in its entirety, everything.
Yes, not just a little bit here and there on TV. Like I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna do it. Proud of you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Uh, my
Me
my
too.
first my first time watching The Ring, I watched it in the theaters too. When it first came out, except I was probably more on the age of like 17-ish. Yeah, I was probably like 17 when it came out. And I went to go see it in theater. The same scene that you are talking about, I remember it legit coming out of nowhere. And usually when I watch movies in the movie theater, wherever, I don't care where I am, if I can sense a jump scare or something,
Mhm.
I will plug my ears and I'll look off to the side because I'm like, ah, I just don't want to be like, attacked,
Right.
But I didn't because didn't have any warning and I got it and I did that whole scream when you're like really scared and you do that, like it's not a scream, does it come out? It's like a, like you think you lose
It
your
takes your
voice.
breath away.
Yes, that is the reaction I had. I remember watching it. I went home. I wasn't scared of the movie though. Like I wasn't scared. Like it didn't scare me, and I don't know why. That scene was like, whoa, but I wasn't I could sleep at night. It was fine. And I remember thinking that it was one of the most visually stunning movies that I've seen. It's probably in the top.
Yeah,
Well, the first movie that I think I really appreciated the artistry of it was probably American Beauty, and then this was probably the second one after it, like that I can remember as a teenager appreciating a movie for how it looked and how it made me feel and the all that. So then I went to go see it in the theater 7 times altogether
that's so crazy.
because I
That's
mean, this is before
ballsy.
streaming. Yes. Yeah.
That's very ballsy. I think the only movie I've seen multiple times in theaters is like 1997's Matthew Broderick's Godzilla. Remember that movie? And that's a guilty pleasure. That's a guilty pleasure. I saw that like 3 times. I think I saw Titanic a few times, but I could not imagine seeing The Ring 7 times. Like I'm telling you, this movie, it traumatized me for a good year. This is one of my top 5 scariest movies of all time. I mean, it's up there in like the top tier rankings and horror history for me with The Exorcist and the Blair
Yes.
Witch Project. Like it's right up there.
I want to know where you want to start with it because, like, to me, I'm like The
Okay.
Ring. I'm so familiar with it. It's like my baby, but to you, it's like more fresh and more new. So I'm like, I want to
Mhm.
know where you want to start with it, with the first like thing you aspect about it that you want to talk about.
I think I'll just kind of just try to unravel why I
Mm.
love it so much. And
Okay.
I'll really just start with how much of a time capsule it is of the early 2000s. You know, you get like the landline phone, which remember how like scary that used to be? Like it used to be, well, it was exciting and scary because you didn't know who was calling you and you were expected to answer the phone. It could be a teacher, it could be a family member, it could be someone you had a crush on, it could be Samara. Like you had no idea who was on the other side of that phone line. And
Yeah.
so you get the landlines, you get the tube TVs, you get the VHSs, you get just movies that has such a soul and substance to them. And so I think the joys of all of that and how vivid those memories are accompanied with just like how incredibly manufactured this film is from top to bottom. And I guess I'll start with the director Gore Verbinski, who is pretty much known for like his Pirate of the Caribbean films and a little movie called Mouse Hunt that I adore. It stars Nathan Lane and Christopher Walken's in it, and it's just a really well directed, well told slapstick comedy, but with some dark elements. So that's just like one that doesn't get enough love. So give that a watch if you haven't seen it. And then you get Aaron Kruger, who is the writer of this movie, who has directed my second favorite Scream movie, Scream 3. I think he helped write a little bit of Scream 4. He also wrote Top Gun Maverick. And then you have, Hans Zimmer, who speaks for himself. So you just have like this eclectic bunch of like creative artists that create one of the most immersive top tier pieces of horror cinematic history. So, all those memories tied to this creative team of crew and cast, and like this cast, man, this cast is so well cast. And I'll just start with Naomi Watts. She makes this movie for me. Like her character on paper is not incredibly interesting, but her acting ability really just elevates everything. And she's just very ethereal to look at, and she's just very captivating, and she just elevates everything. And I actually think she's one of like the best scream queens that never was. You know, like in
Yes.
this and in King Kong, like the amount of emotional expressive dependency that a film asks of her, she always delivers, and it's never grating. She's just always very believable. And so to me, she just makes this movie work, and she just elevates it tremendously. She's just so good. And then you have Martin Henderson, who plays Noah, and I just think his character is like such a good compliment to the character of Rachel. Like it's just nice
Mm-hmm.
having someone that believes you and is going to investigate with you. It's going to help you out, and I like their rekindling. And then you have the son, played by David Dorfman, who plays Aiden, who's like weirdly adult. He has this weird energy about him.
Yeah.
Brian Cox, who I love. If you haven't seen the show Succession, please watch that. Like that's one of my favorite shows of all time now. Like Brian Cox is just this bellowing organ of a man. Like he's so commanding, commands the screen, and he like the little bit of screen time he gets in this is very memorable. And then we'll get into the actress that plays Samara, but all of that, it just matters. It's just well crafted, just a well crafted memory, a well crafted story that I love so much and respect.
Brian Cox, this is the first time I ever saw him was in The Ring. So
Me too.
every time I see him now, every time I saw him since then, I'd be like, "Ooh, that's that grumpy old guy from The Ring." Like when you watch a movie and then that person just sticks. But
Hmm.
he is amazing. You're so right about him being so commanding on screen. And Naomi Watts, I think I watched The Ring this morning, so I could be it could be fresh in my mind. And I appreciated her performance, I think, the most watching it
Yeah.
today. You're right, she's so believable. I think this is one of the best portrayals of a mother I have seen in
Yep.
a horror movie for sure. For sure. Like she's just so realistic as a mother, and she's so edgy and so like
Hmm.
powerful without being like a bee. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
it's not.
I was gonna no, I'm sorry to wedge in, but
No.
there's a scene in the classroom, to your point, where like how
Mhm.
powerful she is, but subtly, and that just goes
Mhm.
down to the directing and writing, like the stylistic choices and the intricacies of this. So there's a scene in the classroom. The teacher notices her son is starting to draw some disturbing stuff, like weird kid stuff, and so she wants to have a parent teacher meeting. And Aiden goes to the car, and the teacher's like, "Why don't you have a seat?" And so Rachel goes to sit down, but instead of sitting in the seat across from the teacher, she sits on top of the desk, like this weird little
Yeah.
power move. I just love
Yep.
that.
Is she doing it a power move for the teacher, or is she doing it as in like, I'm not sitting in the little desk, like I'm not like down
Hmm.
here, I'm up here. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just I love that scene. That scene always stuck out to me when she did that.
There's little intricacies with the writing and the characters in this movie that really make these characters feel more three-dimensional, like that scene in the classroom, or even the scene
Yeah.
towards the end after the big scene happens, and Rachel
Mm.
discovers Noah, and she's leaving his apartment complex. But as she's about to leave and go down the elevator, she notices Noah's girlfriend, partner start to come up, and it's just really well shot. It's just a moment that you feel the weight of. Like, she just kinda hides in the corner, and she's just, like, heart struck and grief struck and just everything, and there's nothing she can do to tell this person to not go there. Like, she can't interfere with, there's nothing she can do, and so she just
No.
has to let that woman go up in there and experience what she just experienced. And it's just a moment that I don't know, I think that stuff like that matters, and it just adds
Mhm.
so much to the movie.
I feel like this movie, every single decision was extremely thought out. It feels
Mhm.
very like everything has intention.
Yep.
and or a meaning, or there's no wasted scene. There's no like why they put this in here or why everything has a purpose, and you feel it, and you feel like the passion behind it. All the characters were good, and none of them like are annoying. Like even Aiden, he's like precocious, but he's not in an annoying way. Like, a lot of kids in movies when they're so adult like in what is that, I Am Sam or whatever, Dakota
Mhm.
Fanning sometimes is so comes across a little like, okay, chill. But he's not like that. There's something so endearing about him
Yeah, there's nothing
and
really like I
innocent.
said, there's nothing grating about any of these characters. They all like even though he's the of course, he's gonna be the kid that kinda has these weird hypersensitive feelings and, has a little bit of exposition, and he does, like, the typical dark, horrific drawings, but he just feels just woven into the story naturally. Like, he just doesn't ever
Mhm,
come off like, "That's too much." Everything's just very subtle, but also very powerful at the same time.
mhm. What next, Kevin? What else? What else do you love about it?
One of the things I love the most about this movie is the color palette, which you kinda talked about. You just don't see movies that look like this anymore. That that weird greens and sickly blues. And I had this thought when I was watching it. It really feels like the color of the bloated corpse of Samara has just permeated
Mhm,
this entire town, this entire world. It just feels like her curse and her evil and everything is just like permeating
mhm,
everything. And I love the
mhm,
way everything's lit. There's a couple of scenes with some trees. I love the use of water, but like the shadows are important to this movie. There's a couple of scenes where you get some time lapse shots of like shadows being raised, and I don't know,
mhm,
like I don't know how you think of that and you execute that, and it's captured perfectly. Like there's just so
mhm.
many things. I'm just like, damn, it's a masterpiece of storytelling. It's a masterpiece to me.
Aesthetically, it is probably in my top 5 favorite movies ever for just how I feel
Yeah.
about the look of it. It almost feels like you're underwater, like the tone
Hmm.
feels like it's like
Yep.
you're an underwater type greeny blue, but then they have the contrast with like the fire and the water. There's like the red glowing warm red sometimes, and then there's like the bluey greens. And there's that one scene where it's
Mhm.
like they're at the cabin and it's all warm and red for a bit there. And then as soon
Oh,
as they
such a good
discover
scene.
that well, I know, as soon as they discover the well, it switches back to being the
Yeah.
bluish green. And I'm
You're
like,
back to
oh my God.
submerged. You're back to being
Yes.
submerged in that dread, and it's so good. And also, there's like this really eerie, hypnotic tone throughout the whole movie, and there's some symbolism in there. And like I said, it's just there's so much details in there to pick up on, whether you notice it or it's like subconscious stuff. You can't help but just be riveted by like what you're experiencing. And so, um, yeah, man, this movie, like I don't know how you can't just tip your hat with everything. It's a beautiful film.
It is. And the score.
Hmm.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the score because it adds so much to the atmosphere of
Oh
this
my
movie.
god.
So,
Yeah.
so much. Give me all those strings, give me all those cellos. The cello is like my favorite instrument ever. So I when it's so heavy on it. So what I think about the score to me is that it creates so much tension, but it also sounds like a whimsical dark fairy tale at times. Like
Mhm.
it's just like has this
It does.
whimsy, and it's
That's a
just
good
like
way to describe it.
yeah, and I feel like even with the colors, even with her being so fair and blonde and blue-eyed, there's like something like dark fairy tale about this movie. And then
Yep.
Samara being so pale and dark eyes when she's
Yeah.
a human girl. I just feel like the color palette and the score and the way the characters look sometimes is like fairy tale-ish, which I didn't even realize until I
Mhm.
watched it today. Even with like a well and everything and the water and the fire, it's like an adult dark grim
There
fairy tale.
it's very grim, and there's, I watched another movie this week called Pumpkinhead. I don't know if have you seen
Mm,
Pumpkinhead? That's a grim
yeah,
fairy tale,
recently.
and
Mhm.
something that both of those movies have in common is tragedy. And I
Yeah.
guess I'll kinda just transition to Samara, which
Mm,
is it's
mhm,
really a tragic character. She's just this hypersensitive child, with like this schizophrenic ability to create these horrific images, whether it's telepathically or tangibly. Like she just was born with this. Um, or I mean, she was either born with it with this seed of evil that like festers and grows uncontrollably, or she's just a vessel of it by just being. And so I just think that's cool. So there's a scene where she's like at the psychiatric ward and they're like filming her. She's in this white room. It's very bleak and cold, and she's just so neglected and misunderstood, and she's poked and prodded. And one of the doctors says, like, you don't want to hurt anybody, do you, Samara? She goes, but I do. And it's I don't know. I felt a lot with the character of Samara, like, because at the end of the day, she's just a child who was like born into a life that she didn't ask for, like a very cursed, a very cursed evil child, you know. But she's also like neglected by the only people in her life that she's ever had.
Mm,
And she's, like I said, she's poked and prodded, and she's locked away in the loft of a barn. She's locked away in a psychiatric ward. She's thrown down a well by her mother, and she survives in there for 7 days until she succumbs to her death. Which, like, once this movie unfolds and you realize the significance of 7 days in the ring, like
mm,
it still gives me goosebumps. It's just like,
yeah.
whoa, so much storytelling, like impactful, cerebral storytelling. And so, you know, all that with what happens with Samara, like all of that trauma and horror and evil is brimming eternally, and she can't help but to like express and project it forever. And so I just think that character is terrifying, but also tragic. And
Hmm.
it's just another like compliment to this story, to the directing, because it's just so layered and immersive. Everything, every character, the villain, the story, the symbolism. It's just a very layered movie.
It is. I think we might have a little bit of different views on the tragic aspects and on Samara, I think.
Really?
I like your view of it, and normally that's how I would look at it. And watching it again, especially today, I'm like, where did she come from?
We don't know.
And well, they said they went away and they came back and they said they adopted her. Did she come from like evil people? Was she
Yeah.
like a curse they wanted to spread? Like who knows like what she even is? Is
Hmm.
she like human? Is she a demon? Like you don't even know.
No, you
So
don't. I love how ambiguous it is too. It
it
doesn't beat
is.
you over the head with like some some simple answer. Like you really kind of have to
No.
dig and kind of just trudge the muck of this character and this story, and still
Mhm.
it's just bottomless, which is cool.
Yeah. It is. And to me, the true tragedy in this movie is Samara's mom.
Okay.
She
Yeah.
that to me is like her getting pregnant, miscarrying, pregnant, miscarrying, pregnant,
Yeah.
miscarrying, and then her husband saying, "My wife was not supposed to have a child." What happened? Why did she miscarry? Did he
Yeah.
cause the miscarriages? He never wanted a child. She wanted a child so very badly. She knows how evil her daughter is. She's apparently showing all these people things. Who knows if she's killed people? She killed the horses, ruined their lives. There's something wrong with her. She's evil. She's not like a human soul, it doesn't seem. And
Hmm.
when she says, "All I ever wanted was you," the way she says it, and
That's
just
true.
that all she ever wanted was a child, and this is what she gets. And then she has to kill her only child she could ever have because she's pure evil and she wanted her so badly. To me, I was just like, whew, that is the saddest
Yeah.
part of the movie to me is the mom.
Yeah. Like you said, they, you know, they can't conceive a child.
No.
But they have like this wonderful life. They have, you know, acres of
Oh.
land. They live on an island. They have this beautiful farm with these horses. And Samara's powers, this her presence alone just drives these horses mad and kills all of them. And so, like, yeah, what are you supposed to do? So, I mean, I get both sides of the coin. I think there's some tragedy with Samara because you don't know where she came from, but then there's a ton of tragedy with the family that just wanted to have a child and they just adopted just adopted evil incarnate. So, but it's definitely,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's very well said. It does feel like a grim fairy tale. Just, yeah, just the way it's shot, color
Yeah.
graded and written.
And the score. It just everything
Yeah.
just feels that way. And they tie I feel like they tie everything with a neat little bow in this movie, even though it's like not a happy ending really. Is everything is like tied up. Every scene leads to something. You're like, oh, that's because of this, and that's because and this is like it's like a horror mystery grim fairy tale
Yeah.
because you're trying to like solve like what are the answers? You're trying to solve this crime
Yep.
right when you think you have it solved. It's like, no, you don't.
You could say it's well-rounded.
Oh,
There's no
yes,
loose
yes.
ends. It's just well-rounded. It's infinite. Yeah, so, maybe this is a good time to talk about the scene that traumatized me for 21 years, that it's taken me that long to look at it in its petrified, feeble, abominable face. So, oh man, even just the beginning of this movie, like it's kind of starts off like a typical movie where you're like, okay, this is just, your average horror movie, jump scare here, jump scare there. But
Hmm.
right when Amber Tamlin goes up the stairs, and there's a really eerie shot of this puddle of water just starting to ooze out from underneath the door crack. And then she opens the door and you just see the static of the TV. And like there is some really like impressive use of camera work where they are just like flexing their craft with like close-up shots. And sometimes the shots are really warped. And there's just like a
Mm,
plethora of just very stylistic choices. But when the camera zooms into Amber Tamblin's face and it starts to decay, I was like, oh man, this this is time to buckle up. And then you find out that she dies, and you get that scene where Naomi Watts' character Rachel, I guess it's her niece that died,
yeah.
Amber Tamblyn,
Hmm.
and so she's at her
Yeah.
sister's house. They're kind of having like this gathering, um, and you're just in the kitchen. It's quiet. It's very
Hmm.
somber, normal, nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing foreshadowing. There's nothing like getting ready to like tip its hand.
Hmm.
And they're talking about what happened and the grief of it, and the mom's just like, I saw her face. And the damn movie cuts to the bedroom, and you hear that high-pitched squeaking noise, and the closet door swings open, and you get the most nightmarish, horrific image, for me, I have ever seen. And it's seared into my brain right then and there, and it has yet to let go until 2 nights ago. And so maybe that's why I haven't watched a whole lot, because that was the scariest movie moment of my entire life. It completely turned me inside out. It is just nightmare fuel, man. I think it might have been Rick Baker that did the makeups. I'm not sure. But whoever did it, just like bravo, but also screw you, because whew, man, that scene, like the ending is very memorable when she comes out of the TV, but that scene, the closet scene, is what did it for me.
Me too. That was the scene where it's like I was like, "Ugh." The thing about that scene too is it is a jump scare. It is, but it's not like a cheap
Mm-mm.
jump scare. Like they don't build up to it. They're just like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna put this right here, and it's like, and this quiet, really emotional scene. Just throw it in there. Totally unexpected. Jump scares can be really cheap, but this was like probably like the most memorable one in like horror
Oh my
history.
god,
I
it's
mean,
so yeah,
it's so good.
it's so good and confident and plays perfectly. I've never
Yeah,
experienced a jump scare or, or a moment like that. Yeah. So like
yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm not being hyperbolic or exaggerating. Like I was nervous leading up to this thing. Like I was sweating, my heart was pounding. And it's very quick. It goes by very quick, but it's just
Mhm.
man, it leaves such an imprint.
Even if that was just like the scene that like made this
Mhm.
movie good, it would have been great. But the whole fact that the whole movie is, in our opinion, a masterpiece. So good.
Yeah. And also, did you pick up um like on some of the thematic elements and symbolism with like movie watching, television tapes? Because there's a really interesting scene with Naima Watts' character. She goes outside of her apartment,
Yeah.
she's on the balcony, and she looks across. It's this really beautiful shot of the apartment complex next door, and she just sees everybody through their window, and they're all just watching TV. They're just
Yep.
like hypnotized and glued into whatever it is that they are watching. And so, to me, this movie also kind of felt like some symbolism about how kind of desensitized we have become because
Mhm.
of how excessive or accessible horrible things are to us everywhere all the time. We are submerged in it. And it's really kind of like, I guess, kind of killing us in a sense. Like it's really kind of ruining our humanity in a sense. And so I picked up on that, which I just thought was another element of like brilliance and also just like, damn. Yeah, that hit.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna bring up that exact scene. I knew it. I just because it is so impactful and it's such a quiet moment, and it's like she is having this realization, and she's looking, and then someone looks back, and it's just that scene you're gonna bring up, and you're right about like the whole like TV and the distraction and everything. Because like even Amber Tamlin's character, Katie's her name, in the very beginning is talking about the waves coming out of
Radio
TVs and
waves,
how
yeah.
and they're it's dumbing us down and it's conspiracy. The government knows about it, and then they have that scene, and then they have the and then having Samara basically put up in a barn with just a TV, like a babysitter, like keep this. This will make you happy, and like it's
Yes.
just like yeah, this the symbolism with the TV and watching TV and just being consumed with all that is it's pretty big. It's big in this movie, and
Yeah. And
yeah,
yeah, it just feels like having so much access to I don't know if you can
yeah,
hear it. It's storming like crazy here, like really apropos mood going on. But just how much access we have to this world just feels like it really just kind of corrupts us. And there's that scene at the very end where they have to make a copy of the tape for someone else to see, and Aiden turns to his mom. He goes, "What's going to happen to them if they watch it?" Just hits. It's just
yeah.
heavy material.
And that's back then when there wasn't
Yeah.
like social media or anything. And then now it's like you can go viral right away. Like, why do you think it's
Yep.
called viral? Because it's like he says, the dad says, the Brian Cox says in the movie, you spread it like a sickness, and it's like a
Yes.
virus, and that's what viral means. It's spreading like a virus, and they were so
Yep.
ahead of their time thinking about it in the ring in this movie where cell phones were little flip phones. They weren't smartphones, and like they had home phones, and they weren't like on the internet doing a bunch of stuff. And now it's like, man, the Samara tape is like a metaphor for social media or something. Like it's
Yeah.
just
It's really ahead of its time, honestly. What a movie with really realistic and important messaging and symbolism. It's just movies that I love. That movies that aren't
mhm,
cheap, that aren't made just for profit, that have a lot of talent and
mhm.
creativity and something to say, but not being overly direct and annoying about it. I really really respect this movie.
Me too. And we were talking yesterday about it, and we were wondering like if this movie came out today. Well, it couldn't. First of all, it couldn't come out today. It just
Mhm.
couldn't, because you just can't, not in this. They'd have to make it like in a past era. But like who would we both thought? Did you
Yeah,
agree with me about the how it had to
I
it'd
did.
have to be like an A24
It
movie?
has to be A24.
Yeah,
Yeah, just because A24 has, like, such a pool of creative talents there
yeah,
underneath their roof, and it
hmm,
would have to be them. Like, it looks like an A24 movie. I could see Ari
yeah,
Aster,
yeah,
Robert Eggers tackling something like this, someone that
yes,
understands, like, humanity and how really messed up we are and how
hmm,
we, like, going back to the Ring tape, you can't look away from it. It's just like when we can't look away from, like, horrific things. When we're on our phones, we're like, "Oh, that's messed up," and you can't help but watch it. We are just, like, riveted by that, and we get
hmm,
desensitized by it, and yeah, like, it just corrupts us, but we can't help but watch it for some reason.
yeah,
It's really interesting. But yeah, I think it would have to be an A24 movie. I would worry if it did get greenlit, it would go to a property like a Blumhouse, someone that could just profit off of the legacy of it, the name of it, and
hmm,
just fill it with jump scares, a cheap script, and that's it. I haven't seen the original Ringu, not because I don't want to. I love
hmm,
foreign horror. There's some foreign horror that's like my favorite movies of all time, like Martyrs, Wreck,
hmm.
Audition. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I would be curious to see the differences in the American remake and the original.
I watched the original after I watched The Ring. I preferred the American remake. Usually, I preferred the originals of movies to
Me
like
too.
American remakes, but in this sense, I liked The Ring better. But I noticed watching it today that there's some shots in the Ring that felt very like Japanese horror to me. Like I felt like not even just horror, like I just found it like Aiden and his and Noah on the street walking, meeting with their umbrellas, looking, not saying anything, and then
Yeah.
keep walking. I'm like, that felt very like Japanese movie. Same with
Yeah.
her on the
Yeah.
balcony looking. It looks like almost like it looks like you're in Japan.
It
Like,
does.
yeah,
Yeah,
they kept the aesthetic a little bit.
Japanese horror has this like this somberness to their art. Just stuff that you don't see in American movies and American horror especially. But yeah, now that you mentioned that, there is some elements to Japanese culture and like horror that's in this as well. Yeah, and this is complete contrast of what you just talked about. But there's a scene with Rachel and Noah, and Rachel's like freaking out, saying, "Four people have died," and Noah's like, "Okay." She's like, "Four people that have seen the tape." He goes, "So what? We watched it. We're hanging." I don't know. I just like that line of dialogue because
Yeah.
it feels like something somebody would say. It
Yes.
just feels
It
real.
was it was very organic dialogue, especially for Noah. Noah, I think he was like almost like comedic relief in this
Yep.
movie, and he has the scene with like that psychiatric nurse guy in the basement, and he's like, diet and exercise, man, and I would never
Yeah.
disarrange. And then that whole exchange was so like lighthearted and fun. That's the thing about this movie. There's so many horrifying, like truly horrifying scenes, like terrifying, horrifying, gruesome, just really disturbing. But then there's these lighthearted aspects in it, like with like playful humor
Yeah.
that make this movie like you can watch it many times over because it's not like
Yep.
overly disturbing because there is also like this lightness and this like this high like artistic value too, where like makes you feel warm and good. So you're like, wow, I can appreciate it. But then there's like all these dark things thrown in there that
Yeah.
are really disturbing. You're just like, damn, it has
Yeah.
everything.
There's a good balance, and there's like one
Yeah.
unintentional funny moment towards the end after Rachel discovers Noah's body. She gets back to her apartment, and Aiden's just in the living room watching TV, and she goes like, "Go to your room now!" And the way his face looks, where he's like, "Oh," and he runs. It just that scene makes me laugh. I love the moments when stuff happens where you feel like something's about to happen, and it does. But then something
Mhm.
else even creepier happens really subtly, like right after, like when she hears the phone call and it's that's scary enough. But then that right here, the drop of water. Oh, that sense of dread, man. And then her nose bleeds. It just feels real.
They just thought of everything, like even all the things that are on the tape and how they incorporate that into the world. Like even when the screws are coming out, there's like a fly on the screw. I'm like, "Oh, that's in the
Yep.
tape."
hmm
Just oof.
Like every molecule of this movie is accounted for. It feels like
Yep, it does. It's all intentional and on purpose, but in like
if
an
there.
organic way. One of my favorite scenes is definitely the horse and the ferry. I don't know
Mhm.
how they did that. I don't know how they shot that. I don't know how they edited that. I don't know how they did all of it. I don't know how they did any of that, but it is so scary. And like I'm a little bit scared of horses. Like I think I've been on a horse like maybe once, and I'm just like so fearful of their majesty and their strength. It's like,
Yeah.
damn, you can f me up. You're huge, and I'm only five
Yeah.
four, so I'm like looking up at a horse, and I'm like, ah. So that scene freaks me out. And then when it jumps in the water, and then when they're waiting, and you see the blood just pool out in the water, and the contrast in the colors, and there's that little like change in the and there's something in the song. There's like a boom, like a sound effect that's so good, and then the
Yeah.
scream, and then the boat, and then the boat horn, and then that shh, and then little
And the panic
millisecond of
from
the ring.
everybody. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
or
You do get that.
there's that little
I went to rewind that. I was like, was that what I thought it was? Or is that a glitch in my movie? But I went back and watched it. I was kind of worried. I was like, man, if I look at that for a second time, am I going to get cursed even more than I already am watching this movie? But yeah, that scene is so sad and eerie and dark.
yeah.
Yeah, just the sound design in this movie is just
Ooh,
so unique. I've never experienced a movie with sound design so well done like this one. Just nasty, nasty sound design.
yeah. It's so good. And the amount of rings and hidden circles and hidden rings and everything in this movie is
Yeah.
just like even at the very beginning in the DreamWorks logo on the moon, it's like it
Yeah.
gets fuzzy and then you see it and I'm like, oh, it's perfect even before the movie even starts.
It
It's
is.
perfect.
the part in this movie where it really just comes to a head, I'm just like, wow, this is like masterful stuff, is when they get to the cabin
Mhm.
and they can't figure it out. They're running out of time. And like what a typical man would do is you can't figure out the answer. So you just get mad. You start throwing shit. So Noah gets mad and he just like
Yeah.
starts trashing the place, and all the marbles from the vase pool into the middle of the room.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, oh my God, the well is underneath the cabin. And it's just shot so well. And the way Naomi
Ugh.
Watts gets like pushed by the TV, the way she collapses
Mm.
in there is really well done. Everything's shot the way like you get these really tight shots of like a probe lens of the screws starting to come out from the ground
Oh.
of the boards. I mean, like, good God, man. Great stuff. I love when Rachel falls down to the well and Noah goes to get help and he's got the fire hose, but it's not long enough. And then she's looking up. You get this really eerie shot of the well starting to close. Oh
Mm.
man, that's so scary. I just love the whole cabin scene. You know, because you're on this investigation with them. Are they going to make it? Are they not? They're kind of like starting to excavate the truth, but they're not quite there yet. And the colors are really eerie, and you just feel like Samara's like wrath starting to enclose in on them. Yeah, so that's probably my favorite scene.
But the one thing that I don't know if I didn't like is like when Samara is in the well and she opens her eyes are blue and her eyes are really brown. And I'm like, why did they do that? I don't know if they did that because that's her evil and her eyes are like this white color, but I don't know if is it the same actress? Like, why is there the difference in the eye color
Yeah,
change? That's
or
one thing where
maybe
I'm like, I don't know.
maybe it's like the transition from her human brown eyes to her like dead milky eyes from when she's a ghost. I think the only things that I'm kind of picky about, and
Mm,
this is nitpicky, there's a couple scenes with Rachel where I'm just like, that's a little too much. Is when her and Noah are like messing with the VHS
mm,
tracking thing, and she's like, "No, let me do it." It's like, "You have no clue what you're doing, like, let him do it." And so she starts messing with it and messes up the track. But I get that
mhm,
scene kinda, like, propels the narrative forward, and then the scene on the boat where she's talking to the horse, like, clearly the horse is not, um, vibing with you, and you're just still trying to calm it down. It's just like, "You need to, like, walk away." And she's like, "It's okay, it's alright." Those are the only 2
mhm.
scenes that kinda bothered me, but, that's very nitpicky.
The scene with her and Noah with the tracking, it's like I think that's showing like a glimpse of how their relationship used to be, like a
Yeah,
power
that's
struggle.
fair.
She doesn't trust
Very
him.
fair.
He's immature. She wants to
Yep,
take charge of everything and he's like, I know what I'm doing. And she's like, no, you don't. I want to do it. And that's why she's
yep.
like you would ever grow up, you know? So it's like she has this like power thing over him and she thinks he's this young, immature guy who yeah. So I think it was a little bit glimpse. It was showing like, ooh, they had like a romantic
That's fair.
relationship before. Uh that's what I got from that. Maybe that's how they were trying to, like, show that,
Yeah.
why they weren't together anymore.
No, 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 it's very valid. That makes sense. I was just like, "You have no clue what you're messing with. You don't know any of this equipment." You made the complaint with Noah earlier where he's talking about, like, he's using, like, film dialogue. She's like, "Can you just talk to me like I'm 5?" Or I don't know what she says, but she's like, "Just
Mhm.
talk normal." Um, so yeah, but I
Yeah.
get it.
Well, you're right
Typical
because 'cause
woman.
you're
I'm just
yeah.
kidding. I'm just
I was gonna say, you're the man and you see his point of view, like, "Bitch, you don't know what you're doing," and I'm like, "Actually, Kevin, this scene was because
just
of
do
this."
this. Just do this. See, it's that easy. And it usually
Yeah.
happens. I'm just like, oh
Yeah. The dude's
my
usually
God.
right, let's just admit it here.
Thank you. If I could go back in time, if I had the capabilities of just choosing one theater experience, one moment throughout my entire life, it would be the ending of this movie when Samara comes through the TV and she gets Noah. Like I just remember how absolutely nuts that theater went, and just to witness that and to be a part of something where it just felt like everybody was together during that time, just to go to the theater and see a good movie. And it really felt like everybody was experiencing the same thing in that movie. No one was distracting, nobody was like off-putting, everybody was like locked in, and everybody was shouting, I remember the gasps and people just being so scared and freaked out, and how fun and alive that made me feel, and made everybody feel during that time. And so that's my best theater experience. That movie, my most horrific moment ever. And so I just owe so much to just the filmmakers, the cast and crew of this movie because it really made a lasting imprint on me and why I love horror movies so much.
I couldn't agree more, Kevin. I would go back for the 8th time and watch this, ninth, 10th time to watch this movie again in theater because I it was my favorite theater experience too because clearly I kept going back for it, and it
That's
is because
awesome.
it's so I loved it. It was so masterfully done, and I think it doesn't get the praise and recognition that it deserves, and I think Naomi Watts
Yeah.
definitely deserves a Scream Queen crown that she's overlooked, and I think she deserves it for this movie. You're absolutely right. When you said that earlier, I was like, you know what? Yeah, why isn't she more of a
Hmm.
scream queen? Like her screams in this movie, blood curdling, and her acting and every she does. Yeah,
Yeah,
Naomi Watts.
just like the little bit of body language she emotes,
Yeah.
her
Hmm.
gasps, her anxiety, everything. She is just such a force of an actress, and I wish she was in more horror movies because
Yeah.
man, she's fantastic.
Yeah, we need shirts made that say "Make Naomi Watts a scream queen for The
Yeah,
Ring." But yeah, I want to go back for an 8th time in the theater because I feel like I've
yeah,
only seen it 7 times for 7 days, and I feel like that's cursed. So I should probably go back.
probably.
Thank you for watching this episode of we're calling it deep dive, and maybe someday with a deep dish. We'll think of another movie to do, Kevin. I know there's a lot that we're passionate about,
Yeah,
and we will just get talking and we'll deep dive into them. I can't wait.
that sounds good. This was a lot of fun. I love this
It
movie.
was.
I'm glad you love this movie, and I hope
Yeah.
people that like this movie tune in and hear all the reasons why it's so powerfully made, and
Mhm.
they love this movie. So this was a fun one, and thanks for having me. And look forward to talking to you again.
You can find more of our content on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcasts. This is always like I always forget every time what I'm supposed to say. You can follow me on Instagram at Marie Plays It All. Where can we follow you, Kevin?
You can follow me at Watch Horror Films, which I might change here pretty soon. I don't know yet. At Watch, but for now it's at Watch Horror Films. YouTube Kevin Ketchie. I have a podcast with my good friend Burke. That are the comments on YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram.
Perfect. Go follow him on everything. He takes
Thank
good
you.
pictures and makes good videos too. So go do that.
Thank you kindly.
And never stop playing and never stop going to see amazing movies at the movie theater. And if you want to see it over and over and over and over again, do it
Support and praise good movies forever.
always and forever. Amen.
Amen. She never sleeps.